Senator Shelby.
Change the subject just a little bit, but still in economics. For years, economists, as you both know, adhered to the Phillips curve, which describes an inverse relationship between inflation rates and unemployment rates. This was mentioned earlier this day. Typically, lower unemployment has generally produced higher inflation. This is in the past, I guess, and vice versa. In recent years, as unemployment has decreased, inflation rates have remained low, thank God. What are your thoughts on the current relationship between unemployment and inflation, and how has the relationship between the two changed over time? Is there a new equation here, Dr. Waller?
Well, I'll make two comments. First of all, if you were to go to any PhD program in economics today and you were taught the fundamental model of unemployment, there's no inflation in that model. So even at that level of graduate training, nobody talks about inflation and determining a level of unemployment. Second point.
But when you think of price stability, you got to be thinking the specter of inflation somewhere.
Correct. So that was where I was going with my second point, which was that one of the things we've learned on monetary policy research is that if you have a central bank who's very committed to a, say, 2% inflation target, and that's very credible that their actions will keep inflation near that target, then inflation never really moves off that target no matter what happens with the unemployment rate. So the relationship looks like it's completely broken down, but it's because the central bank has so much credibility in its inflation target that nobody deviates from it.
But if inflation stays low, does that give, as Senator Kennedy, I think, got into the question, does that give you, would that give the Fed a tool in case of a crisis?
I think what it does is it gives us a different way to think about how to raise interest rates, and that's, I think, what
but that'd be a tool, would it not? A tool.
Correct.
Option.
Right. So your credibility is everything for a central bank. That's it. I think you laid it out. It's the confidence in our currency. It's the confidence in our institution. If you lose that, you're done.
Confidence in the economy of the nation.
Correct.
And the nation itself, right?
Correct.
Dr. Shelton, what?
Senator Shelby, I think that's one of the most profound developments that has happened, particularly in the last 3 years. The change in thinking and the realization at the Federal Reserve, which is steeped in the Phillips curve trade-off mentality, that you can have low inflation and low unemployment at the same time. In fact, it's a perfect, stable foundation for productive economic growth. And that's when you start to see not just the GDP increase, but the increases in productivity, which then justify gains in wages, and the increased output is such that you don't get inflation. So I think this is very important for the future monetary policy.
So low unemployment and stable prices, low inflation, that's the two mandates of the Fed itself. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. And I will take the last word. Oh, did you have a question? I won't do it now then.
That's going to take longer than 30 seconds.
Give me the Cliff's Notes version.
In a sense, as the Fed was draining reserves, we thought there were plenty of reserves, but it clearly wasn't distributed correctly. And then the puzzle that we're trying to figure out is why didn't these reserves flow from some banks to those that needed it? And that's something we've been studying, trying to understand.
Doctor.
I think that it's partially a regulatory issue in the sense that excess reserves have almost become mandatory. They're 8 times higher than required reserves. And I think that the stated liquidity preferences of bank examiners makes banks feel that they need to keep that ready cash, and they were reluctant even to chase a 10.5% overnight repo rate.
I'm done. That's it.
All right, thank you. I'd just like to make a final comment. We all knew that this was going to be a very aggressive hearing today, particularly with regard to you, Dr. Shelton. I think you have been very solid in explaining and defending your writings and your positions. And by the way, the reason that I introduced into the record in my opening statement an article from the Wall Street Journal entitled "The War on Judy Shelton" was just to help make the point that this is an orchestrated, calculated effort. I think you have done very well today. I just wanted to tell you that you've explained, I think, very capably the positions that you take and the rationale for them. And I just want to appreciate the fact that you've gone through that. And that is,
Mr. Chairman, but if you're going to enter into the record the Wall Street Journal article, I'd like to enter the National Review article.
well, you just quoted him,
Okay,
so it can be in the
All
record.
right, thank you.
And with that, we are done and we're on our way to our vote. Thank you very much for being
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
This is very simple, members. Women want to be equal, and we want it in the Constitution. I am equal on this House floor with all of my male colleagues.